Good night, Shabbos, everyone. Of Shabbos, Parshas Vayakhel. The end of the parsha, the Torah tells us about all the different kelim that were made for the Beis Hamikdash, and the Torah tells us about the making of the kira of the laver. Vayas is a kira nechoshes, v'yiskanu nechoshes. We make it out of copper. B'maros hatzovos, the Torah tells us, with the mirrors of copper that shetzavu pesach ol moed, that were gathered together at the entrance of the tent of meeting. So there's an incredible Rashi here. You see, because everybody knows the story of these copper mirrors. Everybody says copper mirrors were the mirrors that were used in Mitzrayim. And there was a vikuch, there was an argument that took place between Moshe and God as to whether they should use these mirrors. Moshe felt that these mirrors were a symbol of vanity and therefore they shouldn't be used. And God said to him, no, you should use them. And the way it's always told over is that these were the maros that were used for the women to entice their husbands in order to be able to attract them to them so that they would have children, that they would procreate, because the men came home from work totally devastated and weren't interested in their wives, and their wives did this in order to be able to ensure that there was going to be a future and another generation of Jews. And therefore those were not symbol of vanity at all. They were actually very, very noble things. And that's a beautiful story, but that's not the story that Rashi tells. Rashi says that the men would come home, and they would come home from their avodas parach. They would come home from this debilitating work, which was women's work given to men, men's work given to women, and they felt totally disconnected from life and from things. And their woman would bring them ma'achol mishta u'machilos osam, and they would feed them. Ve'notlos hamaras, they would take the mirrors. Ve'kol achas roe atzma imbalo. Each one of them would look at herself with her husband. B'mara in the mirror. U'mishtadlase b'dvarim, and would entice him with words. Lomar, and say to him, Ani noa mimcha, more beautiful than you. U'mitoch kach mavios l'ba'aleim lidei tavo, and this increased the desire of their husbands. V'niskakos lahem, and they would be interested in them. U'misabros v'yodas sham, and then they would end up having children. What? Two of them sitting looking in the mirror, and she says, I'm more beautiful than you. Oh, that's what I wanted to hear. What is that? What's Rashi saying? I mean, Rashi's quoting, of course. He's not saying it on its own. But what exactly is going on here? Something, an amazing thing. It says that there are 3 watches in the night. The night can be split into 3 pieces. The first piece of the night can be identified by dogs barking, the second by donkeys braying, and then the third, at the end of the night, when the dawn is about to come, it can be identified by a woman speaking to her husband and a woman nursing her child. So the classic explanation of that is that 3 watches to the night is not just talking about the physical night, but it's talking about exile, so Galus. And that the dogs barking and the donkeys braying are a reference to the different enemies of the Jewish people. But when is that night going to be over? When is the dawn going to come? When a woman speaks to her husband and a woman is nursing her child. So of course the questions have to be asked, that why is it the first 2 are animals and the second one, the third symbol of the watch is a human symbol. And it's also 2 of them, not 1 of them. The dogs barking, donkeys braying are each separate, and then a woman speaking to her husband and nursing her children. So we understand that gullus, that the darkness is caused because we become completely disconnected. And it gets darker and darker for us. We get bitten by our enemies because our identity is not clear. Who we are, what we are is not clear. The only way that we're going to get out of this is when we have that sense of pride, when we have that sense of Jewishness, when we have that sense of clarity and focus. And how is that clarity and focus going to be given to us? When the women are able to give us that sense of who we are, and they're able to return to their husbands their sense of value and their sense of worth. Because that's the koyach that a woman has. The chachma of a woman, bansa beisa, builds her house. She has the ability to understand the essence and the nature of her husband, and she has the ability to be able to build him. She could destroy him in the same way. And she can do the same thing with her children. Her chachma, her ability, she has the ability to be able to look at her children and to be able to know this is what their strength is. This is what their abilities are. She can approach them with softness, with harshness. She can approach them with semer ufishtim. She knows exactly what they need at exact moment. And when the woman is given the ability, a woman is able to develop that ability, is able to retake that world and to be able to give that to her children and to be able to give that to her husband. She nurses her child. She's able to sustain him and to give that to him. And she's able to give that. She speaks with her husband. Mishtad lasei b'dvarim. She's able to talk to him in words by building him up and making him understand this is who you are. That's when we can see the gula. That's when we can see the redemption. And that's what Rashi's telling us. What happened in Mitzrayim with these maros tzovos, with these mirrors? They looked in the mirror and she said, I'm more beautiful than you. This is my koyach, and that's your koyach. You came home all confused. You came home not knowing who you were. You were there working in the fields as you were given the job of a woman. You were given an identity that wasn't yours. You were totally destroyed internally. Your values, your whole sense of self, of worth was completely trodden on. Let me explain to you who you are, my husband. I'm this and you're that. Mishtadlase b'dvarim. She said him straight with her words because she knew exactly what he needed to hear. That's when Geula is going to happen. Those maros sovos that were brought en masse, those maros sovos were a testimony to the future of the Jewish people because they were a testimony to the faith and the trust of the Jewish people, to the hope of the Jewish people, to the ability to be able to say there is going to be a brighter day. But that brighter day is going to shine when I shine. When I understand who I am, when I understand what I am in this world, when I realize you can't knock me down and you can't make me into nothing and you can't turn me into trash. But I am something of value. And I have something valuable to give this world. And when we Jews recognize that we have that as our legacy, and we have that as our ability, and that's what we contribute to this world, when our women are able to be the foundation, the Akaras Abayas, the foundation of our entire existence, and be able to give us that sense of understanding, focus, that sense of a purpose, that sense of being, then we have the ability to be able to see the dawn. And that's the memorial that God said to Moshe Rabbeinu, this is why these maros hatzovos, why these mirrors need to be the place where the Kohanim go and they're makadosh, yadayim v'raglayim, their hands and their feet, where they set their focus on this is what I'm doing, my hands and my feet, my entire existence is to serve God. Has to be made out of the maros hatzovos. And we need that monument today. That monument in the two fingers. That monument in every one of the hostages that have come out and haven't lost their faith and have held on to it knowing that there is going to be a brighter day because we're Jews. And that's a Jew's place in this world is to light up the world. And halavai, the rest of us should get that message. The rest of us should understand that. We should recognize that every one of them, every one of those people, every one of those wives that have supported their families, every one of those wives that have kept their families going as their husbands are in Miluim. Every Jewish woman and every Jewish man that hasn't lost faith in being Jewish and that continues to stand with pride, siren after siren after siren, but you can't do anything to me because we're Jews and we're here to light up the world. We become maros hatzovos. We become these incredible mirrors, these symbols of faith and of self-worth and value. And that is going to light up our lives. And that will light up the lives of the world around us. If we just hold on to who we are and we sharpen who we are, we become mirrors that the world can look at and say, that's who you are. This is who I am. And that's why we're here. To find, to serve, and to attach ourselves to the master of the universe. This little message, this little thing, Rashi, just embedded here in the parsha, it should stand out and be a reflection for us and an illumination for us and give us the strength and the ability to be able to shine bright for the rest of the world so that the dawn can come and we can see the Geula Shlema b'me'era v'yameinu. Amen.